Okay, let me just refresh this, make sure this is working. Okay, perfect. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the live site audit with Jake Bohall. I am your host, Mike Isaac, and along with me today is Jake Bohall. He is the head of SEO at Hive Digital. So, hello, Jake. How's it going? Good morning to you. Good, thanks. Good. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to show us a few site audits here and show us what you can do. So to first get started, we'd love to just get a little bit of background information from you, tell us a little bit about your experience, and then kind of go from there.
Perfect. Thank you. It's great to be here. So I had a little bit of a slide deck that I wanted to share with you guys about just some of my experience, our agency, and then we can go through that while we're waiting on some more people to join the webinar, and then we'll jump straight into the live site audit. So I am with Hive Digital, Inc. We're a full-service marketing agency dedicated to helping companies that are working to create a better world. I started in SEO about 10 years ago, actually a little longer than 10 years ago. I was an aspiring entrepreneur out of college, and I had a couple of startups, one in the insurance space, which went very well, and then I started another one which was in the wine marketing space, essentially like the Wink that we have today, but this was 10 years ago, long before it was legal to start selling wine online. And so we spent a lot of money on lawyers to fail a startup. And along the way, I met the team with Hive Digital. They had actually originally worked with us on some of our marketing strategies. Fell in love with the search marketing space and a lot of the challenges that it offers on an ongoing basis. And I've been here for 10 years. Actually, in my interview said, I'm going to work here for a year because I'm an entrepreneur, damn it. And then, yeah, that was 10 years ago. So didn't quite take the trajectory I had anticipated, but I feel very fulfilled. Part of that is based off of our company's mission to be a full-service agency that help other companies that work toward creating a better world. We do that through a variety of search marketing services. We've got a really fantastic team here that I'm proud of. We start with all of our clients and making sure they have analytics in place, doing paid advertising, transition them to search marketing, which is a department that I had, doing social media, conversion optimization, and then sort of the cycle repeats itself. So some of the types of companies that I've experienced working with, it really varies. I have foundations and nonprofits that I work with. I have e-commerce clients that I work with. This is an example of a company that we've worked with in the past. It's a foundation that promotes entrepreneurship. Part of our team is excited about, again, helping companies that we feel make a great impact in the world. Treevolution is kind of a new startup that we're working with. That, they are essentially taking money and planting trees to try to combat deforestation, those types of things. We do have some fun clients, like this is a drug detox center out of Mexico, and they focus on using ibogaine, which is somewhat of a controversial treatment for drug rehabilitation that's on record for working very well. Investment fund for foundations, which is like an index basically for managing large endowments for nonprofits, and even like plastic surgeons. This one, as a client, sort of struck me as odd because you generally think of plastic surgeons as being vain and those types of things. In this particular case, we have the joy of working with one of the plastic surgeons that has a foundation that travels the world and also solves things like cleft lip for children, and even locally here in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, they do like tattoo removal for gangs and help battered women and those types of things. So really exciting to be able to work with those types of clients. So enough showing off those kinds of things. Today we're here to talk about site audits, and I put together this really cool chart. Well, I found this really cool image that I thought was a great portrayal of how search engines work. And this is 100% a joke because nobody knows how search engines work. We have some really good ideas, and we get feedback from the search engines in terms of when we try something, if it's successful, then we can start to see that there is a correlation and ideally drilling down to whether or not it's actually causing some of the ranking. So at its core, and I think this is important when we're thinking about how we're approaching our site audits, how we're approaching our SEO, to just know that the search engines start by indexing the entire internet, and whenever someone does a query, they filter the entire internet by the things that they feel are relevant. So those are going to be like what topics or keywords they feel are associated with a particular domain, and then they sort all of that based off of authority. So whether or not the speaker on the site is established authority based on incoming links, mentions, popularity within search itself, those types of things, and then the results are polished and personalized. So when we're talking about the site audit and we're talking about SEO in general, it's important to know that the site audit's really going to address that first item. The technical site audit addresses that first item to make sure that the crawlers are able to find our site, visit all of the pages of our site, identify all of our content, get a good idea of how relevant we are to particular keyword phrases. Off-site SEO, a lot of that has an impact for the relevant, so sorting by authority and how many links you have, that type of thing. The polished and personalized also comes back to some of the technical SEO items. So things like if we have meta information that's identifying like where we're geographically located, or if we're using schema markup to say we're a restaurant, or we have events, or we have recipes, and those types of things. So just I want you to think through when you're approaching your SEO from the perspective of, I need to make sure that I meet relevance filters, I have authority filters, and then my site can still pass that litmus test when I'm being kind of polished for local search and personalization and those types of things. As an agency, we cover all of, my department covers all of the SEO aspects, so technical audits, on-site, off-site, penalty recoveries and cleanup and new content, and all those types of things. So it's just another quick primer. To be successful in SEO, you need to have an easily identifiable purpose and value. Your content needs to address the needs of the users in a way they can actually consume it. You need to be an authority, and then you need to make it easy for the search engines to confirm all of these things. So I'm going to leave these slides here for people who are going to replay the webinar later. So I'm not going to go through all of it. But here's kind of like a quick to-do list of things to make sure that your SEO team or a vendor that you've hired is actually checking off these boxes. These are what I thought were priority items. You'll notice the first one is crawling your site, so using a tool like Semrush or Screaming Frog to do an audit. I do think it's important, there are a lot of site audit tools out there. There's Screaming Frog, there's IIS, there's Deep Crawl, there's all these different platforms. I really like Semrush's platform for a couple of reasons. One, I feel like they've done a really great job of putting together why there's a problem and how to address it. And it's in the cloud. So if you're trying to work from a mobile device or a tablet, things like that, sometimes the native applications like for Screaming Frog really create some problems. This is some items to do later. So again, you can come back and visit this at some point, and some content to read and different tools to use. So that being said, Michael, I think, do we have a quorum that we can start to jump into the actual site auditing?
I think we're ready to go, yeah. So just to give everyone in here a little bit of background on exactly how this will go, when you signed up for this webinar, you also provided us with your website and gave us the option to have Jake here audit it right here live. So what he's going to do here is he's going to walk you through a couple audits that he's done. And also, if you have any questions during this, please feel free to use the chat box. We will have a Q&A session after Jake is done here, and then we will address all of your questions that we have. So I'll send it back over to you, Jake, and go ahead and show us what you got.
Great. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'll probably stay here for up until any Q&A elements. Let me just pop it over here. Okay, Michael, everyone can see my screen?
I'm waiting to see if anyone within the chat can see. If you couldn't please see the screen, can you please just confirm in the chat box? All right, looks like we're all good to go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so first off, thank you. There were a ton of submissions for the site audit, and it was kind of challenging to go through and kind of pick out these are the sites that I'm going to do. So I tried to find like a pretty good mix. And the way I want to do this, I'm assuming that most of you have probably seen the site audit tool. Some of you may not have. So the first thing, if you haven't actually used this tool and you're setting it up, is you would add your site as a project. You just simply click here, add new project, put a domain name and a project name. Do note that once you create a project, and they've got a flag here, that you can't change the domain name for that particular project. You can only modify if it's www. Or info. And a lot of that's because there's history that gets associated with the project. So know that you can always just delete one and add a new one if you need it. So I went ahead and created one here. Let's see, there's a company, Netcrafters, that I added. So once you add a project, it's going to show up like this. And then you can click the site audit button to start setting up a site audit. Now, the way Semrush works, you can limit the number of pages that can actually be crawled, or you can set, this is how many pages I want to have crawled. There are limits in the platform. I think with our account, we get like 3 million pages a month or something like that. So depending on whether you have various levels of Semrush accounts, the limits of pages you may be able to crawl could vary. In this case, what I would suggest, just for some perspective, if you do a site search in Google for the domain name, you can get an idea. For example, this site, there are only 93 pages in Google's index. So odds are our crawl wouldn't find much more than that. But just to be sure, we're gonna allow up to 200 pages in case when we're doing a site audit or it's doing the crawl, if it finds more pages than Google has, then we can also identify some issues. So just as a note there, just because Google says there's 100, don't limit yours to 100. You always want to go kind of the next step up, just to make sure that you find anything that could be an issue. Now, a couple of other really cool features here. You can crawl as a mobile bot. So, a lot of times, right now we're talking about how mobile index is really important. So one of the considerations to make is whether or not you want to crawl as a desktop or a mobile crawler. I suggest setting up an audit for both so that you can identify if there are any mobile indexing issues, especially considering that the mobile first crawling for Google's index is around the corner in 2018. So just to prepare for that, you want to start doing mobile crawls. And then you can choose to respect robots. I generally don't. I vet that out later. And then you can allow or disallow specific URL paths. This is really important if you know that there's a section of your site that you have a problem with, or you're trying to solve, or is an infinite crawl space, just to make sure you're prioritizing the crawler to a section where you may be exploring. So for example, if you're only looking to do an audit for your product section, maybe just allowing your product subfolder or something like that might be a good idea. And you can also remove any URL parameters. So if you know, and they give you an example here of pages, page numbers, or if you have, a lot of times we see companies or clients that add parameters to things like in the navigation or the footer so that they can do some tracking on where and internal links where visitors are browsing to different pages. So you might want to ignore those type of parameters if you need to. And then you can schedule the crawl to run every week or once only or every day, that type of thing, which is pretty awesome because you can start to do some comparisons on whether or not you're improving things or if new issues are being discovered without actually having to go and manually set this up every time. And as you can see, once you set it up, that audit runs pretty quickly. So we just said you can crawl 200 pages, and there was about 100 to be crawled, but it took a matter of seconds, literally, before they were able to crawl all of those, and they only found 22 pages. So we'll come back to this particular audit in a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of show that process off a little bit. So one of the first sites that I want to bring up is a site called Sweet Pea Toys. So I did this similar process that I just showed you. I crawled 1,000 pages of this particular site, and once you run the report, you get this type of dashboard when you first do an audit. So you get the number of errors, warnings, and then any notices. And Semrush has done a great job of sort of annotating what each of these things mean. So you get a top 3 issues, and then you get some of these particular like theme scores that they give you on whether or not you're HTTPS or how well they can crawl your site. We can get a quick overview of all of the issues. We can start to see every page that was crawled, and then there's a really cool. Actually, this is probably one of my favorite sections of the site. Issues allows you to specifically look at particular items and say, like, okay, internal links are broken, and those are things flagged by the Semrush platform. But if you do crawled pages under this more filters, you can also get some of the similar things, but it's more of a, as a power user, it gives you a little bit more control. So I can quickly say, I want to see everything where it returned a 404. You get some statistics about the crawl, and then if you have been doing crawls over time, you can start to compare, what were the scores last time versus this time, errors last time versus this time, and so forth. And then there's a cool graph that shows your progress as you fix them. So we're going to dive first into the top 3 issues that it shows here, and then we're going to kind of go through all of the issues. So this flags errors and warnings. One of the first ones that it has is this low text to HTML ratio. Now, we know that text to HTML isn't, or I say we know, we feel, and I believe that it's been confirmed, that specific value is not a rankings factor. However, it is very important to consider because it's indicative of other types of issues that you may have. So for example, the home page is reporting has a low text to HTML value. So if you click on that, it'll bring up that individual page and some statistics about that particular page with that issue. If we look at the home page, we can see that there's not a lot of text on this particular page. There's some heavy images, and so we can see, like, even this bath play build spring. There's no text. When we're seeing here this where thinking is child's play, that is just text, or excuse me, that is just an image. So the only real main body content that we have for this page are the names of these 4 products, and then maybe these testimonials, and then everything else. And even the testimonials would probably fall under supplemental content because they appear on multiple pages of the site. The same with this footer navigation and all this text down here. This all kind of gets lumped as the same text on every page. So what's actually unique about this homepage is that it has 4 images, or excuse me, 8 images, and then probably 15 words of actual text. So again, text to HTML is not and by itself a rankings factor, but it gives us something to look at and say, why don't we have more text on this page? How do we fix it? And it generally is going to lead to other issues where pages are going to appear to be very similar to others. So for example, we pulled up the home page. We knew that this low text to HTML ratio appeared, but we also get this page is similar to content on 4 other pages. And if you just simply select that, it will drop down other pages that it's similar to. So we see this collections front page. And this page looks like it probably shouldn't exist to be crawled in the first place. The H1 tag here, what should be an H1, and I'm just going to spot check that in Chrome. You can just right click inspect element. We can see here that it is an H1. So the H1 is home page. The title of the page is home page. and our URL is collections front page. So at first thought it would be, this is supposed to be the home page. We know that it's different, but what we can deduce is that this particular collection powers these 4 products, which appears on the home page. So this page probably should never be crawled, shouldn't be indexed, shouldn't be available. I'm not sure how this particular page was found. We can show that off in a moment. But the home page is showing as being very similar to this one, because the only difference, if you notice, this has the testimonials, the same menu, navigation, all of this. The only difference we have is the home page and these breadcrumbs, and then there are these 4 products. On this page, we have all of the same, like testimonial, supplemental, these 4 products. So the only difference is 3 additional images. So no text, just 3 images. And that's all that's really different, and those breadcrumbs. So that's why that page is going to be showing up as similar. Now, one of the other things that we look at is we have like the login, register pages. These are going to have the same, some of the same issues, where it looks like they're very similar because there's not a lot of content, like maybe 3% or something like that of the content is different between these pages. So note to ourselves that we need to go through and actually work on improving the content to those pages, or adding content to those pages, or making a choice to just simply remove them from the index. So another thing to look at, let's see, we'll go back to overview. So when we were here, we saw the home page. These login pages and register pages are also going to be very similar. They have low content. We saw that the shopping cart page, again, low text to HTML ratio, but there are no issues. When we start looking at the actual issues tab, we can see these same things are going to come over here with warnings and errors and so forth. So these showed up as a warning. These are warnings, and then the duplicate titles were errors. So under warnings, we have this low text HTML. Under errors, one of the big things we have is duplicate title tags. And this one really kind of helps you identify when there's a crawl and there's duplicate title tags. Sometimes, like for example, with like a screaming frog and so forth, you start to see and you're like, oh, well, those pages are canonicals and that type of thing. This is a great way to start to really drill this down, because we can see just quickly, the URLs here, and one of the patterns is this question mark page equal to. So the 2 immediate thoughts that come to mind are, 1, we should be able to simply add, page 2 of X to the title, and that would address this duplicate title problem. However, a lot of times it's not even really a concern if we're addressing some of the other items. So as a discovery tool, I then notice, these have the same titles. Let's look and see how they've handled the actual page itself. So because this is a paginated page, we know that we should see the link rel equal next and link rel equal prev on the page. So if we just search for rel equal next, we'll see that doesn't appear. So we know that the paginated pages, at least for this particular page, is missing. I've gone ahead and looked through, and if you wanted to browse through all of those and look at the source, it looks like pagination is not attributed correctly on these pages, though they are appropriately canonically back to themselves, including the query parameter for the page. So as a kind of action item to do, it would be implement the link rel equal next and the link rel equal previous on all of your paginated pages. One of the true benefits of that is it allows Google to immediately begin grouping all of those paginated pages together, and your authority can start to collect at the top. So Google will know that page 1 is the parent of all of these, and they're just continued items from that list. So page 1, if it deserves to rank, will accumulate that authority, and Google will only start to show page 2 or page 3 if they really feel that there's something special about that page that matches the intent of the user who's posed whatever query. So when we're looking at the paginated page, just while we're there, we can see it has the same title as 2 other pages, which we can see that's page 1 essentially and page 2. It also has the same meta description. So another consideration would be to include the page numbers in the description itself if it's greater than page 1. And then we have this same issue that we knew before with low text to HTML. Again, we're looking at this particular page has a lot of products on it, but when we're counting the number of words or looking at the actual text on the page compared to the source code, it's pretty low. And so the couple of ways to handle that would be to look at your CMS itself and see if there's an issue in which you have a lot of bloat in your code or scripts that can be pulled out and loaded outside of the individual page. So here, we're scrolling through and we get to, actually we're just gonna, there we go. So we go through 280 lines of code before we actually ever hit the opening body tag. And then even then, to find our first product, so this is like our imaginative play, this is our actual main content. If we look for imaginative play in the, here we go, in the header. So that first header is 500 lines of code in, and that's because a lot of this navigation and items. So look at your site, look at your competitors, and talk with your developer and say like, hey, is there a better way that we can get this important keyword? I'm imagining that this imaginative play collection, they're wanting it to rank for imaginative play toys, which that phrase doesn't appear here, or toys for imaginative play. But those types of phrases are appearing as high in the source code as possible without actually breaking anything. So when we're looking at duplicate title tags, we can pop through all of these and see that this is pretty much the same issue for all of these, page 2, page 3. So the pagination issues are causing all of those problems. I think I just clicked on the wrong button. Yeah, so this was all of those particular issues. So if we go into errors, we can also see duplicate content issues. And these are going to be the pages that appear to be very similar. So we're going to see that between, like best toys for 10-year-olds versus, page 1 versus page 2. That's always going to be an issue. But when we start to look at, what it's similar to, we can see that the best toys for 10-year-olds is very similar to the best toys for 7, 8, and 9-year-olds. And just for comparison's sake, we're going to open these pages and see, well, what's the difference? Well, other than a slight bit of sorting, all of these toys are pretty much the same between a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old. So, it wouldn't necessarily make sense for you from a business standpoint to just, completely shuffle and change all of your products. But the considerations would be we could do a better grouping, so we could start to create ranges. So best toys for 7 to 10-year-olds, if all of those products are going to be similar, or to add more content to this page. Now, I'm assuming that you would like for this page to rank for 10-year-old gift ideas or toys for 10-year-olds. But there's actually no instance of this other than the one title, best toys for 10-year-olds. So this would be one of those great opportunities for you to add some intro text here that talks about how or why you've decided that these are the best toys for 10-year-olds. And at that point, you can talk about gift ideas for 10-year-olds, or how maybe that they've reached this age. This is the developmental changes. You could do some text here and add some text or descriptive content underneath your product listing, because that's going to be what differentiates this page from the 9-year-old page, because a lot of your products are the same. Now, with that in mind, you can't just write the same paragraph of text for 9-year-olds to 10-year-olds and swap out the number, because then you're just going to have a 1-character difference between that content. So you're going to have to actually take the time, go through, and improve the content for that page. A couple other things that are highlighted here. Duplicate meta descriptions. We pretty much covered that with title tags. It's going to be the same. Flags it, tells you how to go fix it. So you need to check those and do it. Internal links are broken. Site quality. When we're talking about Google's Panda update, one of the things that's a rolling update that checks for site quality, and it covers, from what we've been able to glean, it covers everything from thin content to poor user experience. And things like broken links are a part of that user experience. So when we see many of these pages where internal links are broken, we can see this page has a broken link here. So you can visit this individual page, and actually as a shortcut is this little icon here. And we knew that the link that was broken was this brio.us. So we can look in the source code and try to find that, brio.us. And then we can see quickly here that this link for Brio website is broken because it's pointing to a local URL. So you can see down here that local URL, train sets products, brio.us. So we're linking to a bad URL. It's just poor formed. And then we know that's on this image. If you start to kind of read through the source, you'll be able to identify where it's at. So it should be an easy fix. There's not anything wrong necessarily with the template. Let's make sure. There we go. And sometimes you'll find things that are wrong with the template. So there's some sites you'll just see this page over and over and over again, and that's because your navigation points to the wrong thing. So those are the errors. Warnings obviously take less of an issue, but there are some things like pages have too much text within the title tags. One of the items that's really easy to note here is these are all, or a large number of these are product pages, and our title is product name, category name, site name, and then site slogan, I guess. And so we actually have Sweet Pea Toys in here twice. For all of those. We're adding these characters for no reason. So we would fix that part of the title and immediately cut out 10, 16 characters from our title, where Google's probably truncating that. The other question would be whether or not you feel it's important to have the category name included with your product title. And this is oftentimes a debate among SEOs about whether or not that's important. I am of the opinion that you could find a way to include the category name as part of the product title. That's great, but doing this sort of separation here, I feel, one, takes away from the fact that this page is about the classic stacking clown toy. It is not about developmental toy. You have a page. You have a category page that's dedicated to developmental toy. Odds are people who are searching for the classic stacking clown toy are going to know what they're looking for and search for some variant of this. If they include developmental toy, let Google look at the actual content of the page. And when you're talking about the product itself, you talk about how it's a developmental toy. So that already exists in your content. So deprioritize it from your title so that your title really focuses on specifically what you're offering with that individual page. And that is why almost all these titles are too long, is that combination of this, duplicate of your name, and the inclusion of the categories, which again is making this title looks just like this title. Well, those two pages are the same actually. It looks like the award-winning products page. This is probably something we would have seen somewhere else. This URL and this URL are highlighting the same product because they're both, or that particular product's in multiple categories. So just as a spot check, we're going to check the canonical, which points to the products classic stacking clown toy, which is I'm assuming the canonical, I hope, that this particular page would have, and it does. But do note that John Mueller, I believe he said it in the last couple of Google Webmaster Hangouts, and that was if you're internally linking to a canonical URL, Google might use that and basically ignore the fact that you've put a canonical because you are linking to it directly from other pages of your site. So if it truly is a canonical, you might want to consider, doing some type of update or fix so that you only link to that canonical URL throughout your site to try to avoid additional confusion for the search engine. So when we're looking at these, I was going to say the title between many of these is going to be, wooden train set versus classic stacking clown toy. Oh, excuse me. I was trying to find two within the same category. Yeah, so builder construction set is a hands-on development toy, and toddler musical drum is a hands-on developmental toy. The difference in those are going to be just these characters in the title. So not only do we have too much text, but our titles in this case are at least 65–70% similar. They're not unique, and it's not just your brand that's creating that duplication between titles. So that's, again, something that you want to pay close attention to. Pages without an H1, that's pretty straightforward. Every page in your site should have an H1 tag, even if there are these weird account page or created account. If you're going to let Google view those pages, define what they are, and consider at times whether or not you want Google to even see those pages. Or you might want to consolidate those pages. Like, in all honesty, this login and register page, they are pretty much identical. Click here. So this is the register page. This is the login page. Now the difference is we've got two new fields that we didn't have before. So a lot of sites are even considering merging those into a single page. So fill in this information to log in, or fill in this information and register here, just to kind of minimize those. Not a major SEO issue. I wouldn't worry about it too heavily, but just something to consider. Multiple H1 tags. So the terms and conditions page has 2 H1s on it. So drill down. You only want to have one H1 tag on any given page. And this page is a temporary redirect. This one we're fine with, your account page redirecting to your account login page. The suggestion there might be, however, that anywhere on the site where you would put the account link, that you check to see if the user's logged in and just point them or make that link go directly to the login page instead of sending the user through a redirect to get to the login page. When we're looking at the crawled pages, we can drill down some of these items more in depth, like I mentioned, with these custom filters. Essentially, all of these issue pages are the crawled pages with some custom filters put in place. So know that, and if you want to filter any of them, there's also this advanced feature. So know that that's there for you. A lot of times what I will use this for is just to kind of quickly identify, for example, pages that canonical somewhere else versus canonical to themselves. So you can just simply hit this button. There's also a measure for internal links. So if you see pages that have no internal links that the crawler has found, it should be, in this case, if you used the site crawl as the method when you set up the audit versus uploading a sitemap or uploading a list of URLs, if things start showing up here as 0 and you uploaded a list, then you know that there are no internal links pointing to that page, or it's not linked often enough, and you should reconsider that. And you can also probably start to notice some things like, that are linked very infrequently, and start to ask yourself why and were those pages important. And hreflang doesn't apply here, I don't think, on this site anyway, but you can start to see some flags for hreflang usage. There's also a notice here that the subdomain does not support HSTS. Now, HSTS is essentially an order from, it's called HTTP Strict Transport Security, I think. Essentially, it's a server setting that tells the browser, when you're trying to visit my site, I'm only going to be available for HTTPS. Now, if you have an SSL certificate, it's a good idea for you to get HSTS enabled on your server, because it essentially creates that security policy that prevents man-in-the-middle attacks. I don't know that that has any sort of major SEO impact, but it might be, again, black box, it might be a good way for Google to try to distinguish between somebody who's just thrown an SSL certificate in place versus somebody who actually genuinely cares about the security of their site visitors. And so if you're a financial institution, like, this is an absolute must that you have something like this in place. So I'm going to pop into a couple of these other sites that we ran the audit for. I'm hoping that this is giving you a good feel for how to use the Semrush audit platform to kind of leverage as a jumping off point for doing audits for your site, and kind of seeing some of the ease in which, you know, they're identifying these are the problems, and, you know, here's how you solve them. They do have, like, for example, you know, this particular site, Newfield Health. I can pull up the site just so everyone see what kind of site we're talking about. So blood test made easy. So it's obviously a healthcare related site, so might fall into your money, your life filtering when it comes to Google search quality guidelines. So just if you're the owner of the site, remember that. Make sure that you check out that section of Google search quality raters guidelines a little more in depth. But we can see here, you know, 8,323 pages of the pages we crawled 15,000. Do not have meta descriptions. So, you know, that's a pretty, you know, obvious, like, hey, we need to add meta descriptions. Those are important. Again, Semrush does a fantastic job of adding these like little teaser items. So if you're not an SEO, you don't know what this means, you know, you can quickly pop in here and see, like, okay, you know, the meta tags don't actually directly influence your rankings, but they do act like your sales pitch to get people to click through. Click-through rates from search results do impact your rankings. So if you can improve your click-through rates by improving your meta descriptions, then you could see some improved rankings for your site across the whole. So 7,328 links on HTTPS leads to HTTP pages. This is important, especially, you know, as we mentioned a moment ago, this is likely a categorized your money, your life website, and therefore HTTPS is even more important. And in this case, you have a lot of pages on your site that link over to the HTTP version of your site. So if you're going to take the time to create an HTTPS page or set up an SSL certificate, it really doesn't do much good for you if throughout the site you're actually linking over to HTTP pages. And those are going to be internal HTTP pages that it's finding. Just going to see if I could, let's see. Page links to itself. Where do we go? There we go. So the female health assessment. There it is. So in your hero image, there's a female health assessment. Or it said hero image in the source code. So maybe it's maybe there's some sort of link hidden here or something. But there is an HTTP link. And so what's happening is if somebody clicks on that, they're going through the HTTP server. And again, if you don't have HSTS, that creates an opportunity for a man-in-the-middle attack. But you should be able to simply do a find and replace if you have a CMS or anything like that. Do a find and replace in order to grab all of those HTTP URLs and just swap them out for HTTPS. If you are in the process of transitioning to HTTPS, that should be one of the checklist items of things to do before you ever go live, is doing a full crawl of your site, looking for HTTP links and replacing them all with HTTPS. And in this case, that's a pretty prevalent issue. So 28% of all the errors and warnings that Semrush found, 7,300 links of the 15,000 pages, are all pointing to HTTP. So obviously, the HTTPS implementation here went very poorly, and somebody needs to go back and start fixing those things. Duplicate H1s and title tags. I personally have less of an issue with this. Semrush, points out that the title tag should not necessarily be your H1 header because it would look like you're trying to over-optimize an individual page. One of the best ways to resolve this, so you can see, Mr. Sanjay Verma has an article. And so the title is Mr. Sanjay Verma. And then actually it looks like this has possibly been modified since I ran the crawl the other day, because the title now has, author profile, which was going to be my suggestion. So good job to the team over at Newfield for possibly catching that ahead of today and getting that implemented. It would be important to note that this page with this one little tiny bit of text and this guy's name, probably not enough to justify having that page indexed, and especially when we start looking through how many author pages exist. If they all look like this, then you're likely creating a very large thin content problem for your website, and you should consider either kind of building out these pages to actually give a bio about Mr. Verma and those types of things, or doing some sort of conditional that if there's less than 5 articles that are going to be linked, don't show the page or don't open the author pages for indexing until afterward. So for this particular site, we have some of the standard duplicate content issues, duplicate titles. External links are broken. So again, this is a site quality problem. Your site is linking out to these pages. These pages don't work. So you should revisit those and identify them, go fix them. Pages that don't have title tags, obvious again, go fix them. So that's one of the great things about the Semrush tool is it does very quickly point out, like, here's a problem, and it's obvious what I need to do to fix it. This one, there's issues with mixed content. So again, you can see here there's a nice description, but essentially what's happening is this particular page is pulling resources that are HTTP resources despite being an HTTPS page. The browser is going to give this, site is not fully secure, and probably what that is there's like a logo or image, like maybe that image right there, which it is. So there's an image, in this case, being embedded on the page, and it's an HTTP image. If you don't host that image, maybe that's the way to fix it, is that you put that on your own server so that you can serve it from HTTPS, as opposed to trying to hotlink to their image, which, one, they may not like, and two, if they ever take down that image, now not only are you linking to an insecure resource, you're also linking to a broken page. So you're really leaving yourself vulnerable. And if this guy's site ever gets hacked, one of the things that could easily happen is that a clever hacker will say, like, I know this image is hotlinked a lot. I'm going to write a script that everywhere and every time this image gets pulled, instead it serves a script that starts copying content or forcing a download on the other user, those types of things. And you don't want to be the gateway for those types of things. Again, especially if you're a your money, your life site. Having those types of vulnerabilities really leaves you exposed, and Google's not going to promote you for that. Another thing, let's see, we're getting low on time, so I'm just going to pop into a couple other sites for some issues that I thought were pretty common that definitely should be noted. This site, teachme.dance, has, let's see, SEO Audit. So this particular site, the teachme.dance, one of the things that they have that's pointed out to them, I think it was here in their notices. No, I'm trying to remember how to quickly get to it. one of the problems that they had that I found when I was going through here was that their pages, their canonical pages, they have HTTPS pages, but then their canonical tag is pointing to the HTTP URL. I was trying to see where that is. Let's see. Yep, so here it is. So this is where that crawled page is, and then you do like the canonicalization. You can see here all these pages canonical to another page. And so when I see this on the home page, it's a little concerning. It's like, okay, well, why is that? Maybe it's because it's going to the non-WW, the non-WW version. Well, I hope not, because that page is broken. So this particular site, the non-WW page doesn't even return anything. So we need to fix that and redirect non-WW requests to the WW. And in this particular case, the home page, which does work and is HTTPS. If we look at the source code to figure out what that canonical is, we can see they're pointing to HTTP, which is not good. If you're going to take the time to set up HTTPS, fix those issues. Don't link to HTTP anywhere. Crawl your site, look for it, and address it. And then obviously here we can start to see here that when you pick the individual site, it'll show you as well. You don't have to go to the source and browse through it. I like to do that because I tend to find other issues. And then the other item that I wanted to point out for this particular site is they have their sitemap. So incorrect pages found in the sitemap. So essentially, and this is a combination problem. So because of the fact that they're canonicalizing to a different URL than their pages, and their sitemap, points to contact us, but then their contact us page canonicals to the non-HTTPS version. So there's, we're again creating this confusion where we're telling Google one thing and then showing them another and giving them a different story somewhere else. And so, going through the tool, you should be able to start identifying those types of issues and asking yourself, why is that showing up? Why is that problem here? So you can start to dive in a little bit and use some of the Semrush prompts to check it out. The last thing I want to show you is this Hutchins Attorney. And this was a test site. This isn't their live website. They had asked us to specifically audit their test site. And so I ran the tool, and because I wanted to show off some of the changes that happens, I did set this one to run on a schedule. So you can see if you do the crawl like every week or every day, you can start to see what happens. So like Thursday, there were 9 issues. Friday, there were 9. Monday, there were 10. This Thursday, there were only 7. So we can see like the number of errors is going down. So this dashboard is really cool, especially if you're an SEO, to be able to present to your client, or if you're internally to say, look, we're solving these problems. The number of issues are going down. You can go into the compare crawls and start to drill down on what exactly was solved. So this is the number of issues that were fixed, and then the number of new issues that were found. So in this case, duplicate title tags. We fixed 2 of them. Pages not being able to get crawled, we fixed 1 of those. Low text HTML was fixed on 5 pages, but we added 7 more. So our actual issue increased. So this is good for you as an SEO or even as like a marketing manager to just kind of watch what's happening. So even if you don't know how to use the site audit tool, or you don't want to use it, at least set up some of these crawl comparisons so you can see what happens over time. And then know that you can see these high-level items by simply going to issues. And this creates a punch list. And the other cool thing, you can see the graph for how those are changing for every single issue that you've crawled. And then I don't know if any of you have noticed, if you use the Trello platform, if you are a marketing manager, you can quickly just say send to Trello, and it pops up on like your dev team's board or a junior SEO's board for something to go fix. So Michael, I think I'm going to pause there to give time for questions.
That works perfectly. All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to show us all that. Let me get right into the questions that we have. It looks like the first one comes here from CCF Canada. We have duplicate pages, same URL, but with trailing slashes at the end. How do we handle that?
Okay. So did they tell you what the URL was? Did they show that?
Unfortunately not. We did not get that. But if he is here, she is still in here, if you could include that.
It doesn't matter. So, the easiest way to do that is you could set, like, on your server, if you want to force trailing slashes, you can set up a redirect, essentially, in your, if you're on an Apache server, you use htaccess, and you would just simply look for URLs that don't end in an extension like .html, .jpeg, that type of thing, and then force a trailing slash. Your canonical tag should also address it. So be consistent. If you're going to use the trailing slash, make sure it matches in your canonical tag, and update your internal links. And know that users are going to link to you both ways. So as long as you're either forcing a redirect to one or the other, or internally linking and canonically to a consistent version, you're not going to have any problems at all. Google, they're smart enough to figure those types of issues out.
All right, looks like the next question we have here is, how do you minimize something like JSON, which is throwing off our text to HTML ratio?
You can store that in an external file. I believe that if you're looking at the, well, actually, because you're wanting that to show up in the source of the page, just know what you're doing. So, like I mentioned before, the text to HTML is not in and of itself a rankings factor. It's more of an indicator to identify, do I have a problem? So if you have like a large amount of JSON for like schema markup that you're injecting into the page or something like that, know that it's not going to cause you to rank poorly to have a high amount of JSON in the page or getting injected in the page, but just make sure that it's that you're using that litmus test to say, like, should I look at this? And if you look at the source code and it looks obvious, like, oh, I've got 150 lines of JSON, maybe a little much. But if I have a lot of JSON on the page and it's justifiable, then you don't really need to worry about it.
All right, looks like we have a. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially if it's like schema, if you're using JSON to put schema on the page, because that JSON element's going to have some relevant content that's adding context to the page, and I would in my mind separate that from the other HTML of the page.
Perfect. Okay, we got another question from Nikki. I get 403s on a Shopify site. There's no access to modify robots.txt file. How do I fix this?
I get 403s on a Shopify site, and I have no access to edit the robots.txt file. So I would be wondering why the 403s are being served. So obviously those are being linked. Those pages would be getting linked to from somewhere. You wouldn't necessarily need to block them with robots if there wasn't a way that the crawler was finding those pages. So if you're linking to them internally, then remove those links from the content of your page. Because I don't know why you would be linking to those or why the search engine will be finding them. If you don't have access to your robots, also make sure that you're not including those pages anywhere in your sitemap. And I think that's pretty much all you could do. Just know that Google's not going to penalize you for errors. Like they've said, like, if you have a large number of errors in Search Console, we're seeing those. Like it's not a penalty that's going to come to you. You're not going to get devalued because you have a large number of 404s reported there. However, and this is the disclaimer, that's because they're reporting on those based on finding the links from external sources as well. But I have in my inbox, I have an email from Bing where they said, your site's being devalued because of the number of errors. And that's because if those errors are being caused internally, then that's a site quality problem. If those errors are being caused externally, then to an extent that's out of your control. And it would be more important for you to try to look at log files, identify where that traffic's coming from, and really fix it at the source.
All right, and it looks like we have time for one last question from Hung Fam. Why is having thin content pages on the site a problem?
Interesting question. So essentially having a thin page means that you have no substance, right? Like there's when Google's trying to identify a site to rank for a particular keyword phrase, bear in mind that there's likely thousands upon thousands of other pages that would also like to rank for that exact same keyword phrase. And so when you have thin content, one of the first signs or signals that you're giving the search engine is that you don't have a lot to say about the topic. And so you can imagine if you had a panel of SEOs and you're asking them questions, and you ask one question, why don't we have thin content? And the SEO's response is because it's bad. And then the next SEO explains like, well, Panda's algorithm looks at things like site quality and trying to identify whether or not there are things like doorway pages, which can be easily identified when there's a large number of pages on a site that just have a few keywords or a few keyword-rich snippets on a page, and that's it. And they look like they're there just to rank. You're going to look at the SEO who said like, well, it's a problem, and think he doesn't know what he's talking about, or there's nothing really there to add to the conversation. And Google's looking at it the same way. When they see, your children's toys page has 5 words on it, and this guy's children's toys page has 100 words and a video and images and products, that guy deserves to rank. He's put more work into it. He obviously has more to offer and is more likely to meet the intent of the user who entered the query at Google in the first place.
All right, so it looks like we weren't able to get to all of the questions here, and I know that some people still have more questions coming in as well. I want to just suggest to people that if you do have those questions, please feel free to use our help section on Semrush. You'll see it on the top bar there. We have a knowledge base. You can search for any question that you do have, and we should have an answer to most of those. If not, please feel free to contact us. You can contact us by email, or you can contact us by phone. All of our support members are here within the United States, so you can feel free to ask any questions that you do have there. So I want to thank you, Jake, very much. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to offer as well, my Twitter handle is @JakeBohall. So if you can fit your question in 140 characters or less, feel free to tweet me as well, and I'll be around today. I'll try to answer as many as I can there as well. And just do me a favor and add Semrush to that chat, or the hashtag. Michael, if you've got a preferred hashtag that you want added, just so they can stay in the loop on those conversations as well.
Absolutely. Perfect. And you heard it there. That's his Twitter handle if you'd like to be able to ask him questions as well. Thank you, everyone, for attending this webinar. Thank you very much, Jake, for your expertise. I know that you provided a lot of people with some helpful information here. And we do this every week. So if you want to come by next week and find out a little bit more about any site audits questions that you do have, please feel free to come by. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy your Wednesday. Thank you. Thanks, Jake, again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me.